Hi, this is Erin from Blossy Bee. Welcome to my channel. The plan for this video is to create a layered mermaid inspired pattern in an eggshell edge pot using fast setting polyurethane casting resin. But the plan rapidly fell apart and it all turned into a horrible science experiment. We're talking fizzing, foaming and crackling. That was just my brain. But I now know why, so watch with me and learn what not to do. So the product that I'm using is made by Solid Solutions in Australia. It is called Solid Cast 660 Polyurethane Casting Resin. And I'm pointing out to you on the bottle there that it is a quick set formula. It has a mixing ratio of a 1:1 volume. It's very fluid, very almost water-like. It has a working time of 2 to 2.5 minutes at around 20 degrees Celsius. And you can demold between 15 to 40 minutes later at 20 degrees Celsius. Now, everything that goes wrong in this video is user error, nothing to do with the product. The product is great. I can't stress that enough. The user, not so much. So, what I planned to do was to have some separation on my workbench between the A and the B, because you have to work so quickly. And also, unlike normal epoxy resin, I don't want to go too far and have to stop and then add colour and things like that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pour the part A and the part B in separate measuring containers, and then into the clear part A, I'm going to add the colouring. I mentioned that I was going for a bit of a mermaid vibe. I hope you know what I mean. You know, that palette of colours that usually goes from a sort of a pretty purple to mauve, often through to a pale green and maybe a teal green and a pink. So that was my intention, and it was really me wanting to find out if you could layer polyurethane casting resin and if you could colour each of those layers. I wanted to know if the layers would bond with each other. So I did do some research, and I discovered that many polyurethane casting resins are advertised as being able to be layered as long as it's within 10 minutes. But I now suspect that that information was not correct, or it may have only been correct for a particular brand. Because, trust me, that is not what happens. So, what I've done is, I also forgot to mention, I've actually, for ease of access, poured part A and part B into two separate larger containers, so I can then use a disposable syringe to measure out of those and get very accurate amounts, and they are small amounts. I am unsure of the effect on the product of decanting it into smaller containers and then putting it back in afterwards. So this was just me trying to work out a few bits and pieces. So I've gone ahead. This is an eggshell edged mould that I bought from Temu, and it was in one of my recent unpacking videos, and I haven't cast it yet. So it's the first time. I thought it would look really pretty with that wavy edge. I'm using Arc Pigment colours, which I believe was another user error. These are the ones from Just Resin that are designed to work with acrylic resin and eco casting powder. So many mistakes, so many. So while I'm doing this, I have my eye on the timer all the time, and when I got to about 5 minutes that the current layer had been in the pot, I started work on my next layer, tinting the part A accordingly, then quickly mixing in part B and pouring it into the mould. So if this were epoxy resin, I would expect to get some reasonable layers, particularly if I'd let the resin thicken up a little bit, or if I waited between layers to get the resin to the point where it wasn't going to all just mix in together. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward a little bit from here until we get to the more dramatic section. So I had actually thought things were going quite well at this stage. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was regularly feeling the mould and it was getting very hot, but then everything dramatically changed right about now. So, as you can see, my whole piece started fizzing and bubbling and crackling, and yeah, I was really actually quite worried. The heat was intense, the bubbling was real, and I could see then that there were massive bubbles all through the side. So I did go ahead and test doing one colour. I was really starting to wonder whether it was the multiple colours that was the problem. Well, I suspected it was. Anyway, look, it's set, and I'm showing you here the demoulding. It was not easy to demould, but I suspect that is more to do with the fact it was a newer mould than what had happened. That bottom, which is the bubbly, it's bad. It's really bad. So it's sharp around the edges and it is so porous. It's incredible. It's very hard to explain the next part, but the whole pot feels like it has a plasticky coating on it that almost crackles when I touch it. It's definitely cured, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. Nothing is right about this. The mould was undamaged, which is good. And look, the effect is quite pretty. All of those sort of mermaid inspired layers looked really nice. But you can see that the whole time I was pouring, apart from that first layer, which looks really good, every other layer became increasingly more damaged and full of bubbles and the foaming, and yeah. So the yellow piece wasn't brilliant either, but it certainly didn't have that extreme bubbling. So it did have, I'm just showing you around the edge there, it wasn't perfectly smooth. I'm not 100% certain why that was the case, but that was the result of my first experiment. And yes, I had to regroup a bit. So I did some research online and discovered that the number one reason for polyurethane resin reacting that way is due to it being past its use by date. So I turned back to the manufacturer and discovered that their product has a use by date of 3 months after opening. I double checked and I first started working with this in October last year. So my product is out of date, and I do believe that is the total cause of, well, not the total cause, because I think as well as it being out of date, I was trying to do something with it that you're not meant to, and I was trying to colour it with pigments that probably aren't best suited. So I really wasn't doing the product any justice at all. So I decided at that point, I had almost 4 bottles. I really hadn't used much at all. It was going to be of no use to me whatsoever going into the future. So I was going to make things until I had nothing left to use. So now I am going to try colouring some items with some Pearl-X pigment powders, just to see if that makes a difference to the end result. And I'm going to just choose single colours. I'm not going to get fancy. I've given up on the layering with this product. I'm keeping it very simple. So the mould on the right is a mobile phone stand or a little display stand, and the one on the left is a small little display stand as well, one of those ones that slot together that you can put little plates on and things. So I'm going to go ahead and pour these, and as I said, I'm just hesitant as I'm doing this because the previous experience was honestly so horrible and quite frightening and dramatic, and a lot of those things that you don't really want when crafting is your calm, happy place that you go to. That dark pigment that I use, by the way, is graphite powder. So for some reason I decided that I would try alcohol ink. Why not? It was like a dumpster fire of a crafting session already, so let's just throw some more on it. So I don't have a very good range of alcohol inks, and I certainly don't have any really good brands. Most of the ones I have, I've bought secondhand from other people, things like that. So I just went through, added a few drops of the few colours I had, and poured in the polyurethane resin. And yeah, here we are. They are all cured. So demoulding time. So first of all, this is the stand, that little mobile phone stand, and this is the one that I coloured with the pigment powder, and it's awful. It's just hard to describe how awful it is. It must have not been mixed properly, I'm not sure, but also it's icky, like it has a bubbly surface. Now, these ones I did with the graphite powder, and they are perfect. I'm loving that colour. It's exactly what I wanted, and they are so smooth. That is really the look that I'm used to with this polyurethane resin. And so I was very, very happy with that. This is just a little oval mould that I poured the excess into, and it is a little bit mottled. I obviously didn't mix the powder as well, but I'm happy with the colour. It feels great. There's no bubbles or anything like that. And then the last little bit I popped into this arabesque mould just to use it up. So these were the alcohol inks that I used, and straight away, oh, I should have had gloves on. Straight away, I can see that the alcohol ink is still very wet on the bottom of the piece. And yeah, I had to have a bit of a quick clean up here, and I tested the other pieces, and they are cured to the touch. They feel like they're cured to the touch, but they obviously aren't. They do have a little bit of bubbling around the edge, and they aren't what I would consider as smooth or consistent as those pieces above in the grey, which was the graphite powder. So I was really shocked by how bad these were. It could have been also a combination of me not having great alcohol ink. My technique with alcohol ink might be way off. Yeah, I'm really not sure, but it wasn't a success, unfortunately. There was a fair bit of cleanup to do afterwards, and I do include photographs of these pieces and that purple phone stand at the end. However, my intention is to yeet them out the window at my earliest opportunity. Not literally, but figuratively. I don't need these in my life. They don't make me happy. So there you go. So I decide I'm going to try and go back to a more happy place. I knew that the graphite powder actually worked really well, and so I decided to try and recast that mobile phone stand so that I could at least get a better idea of whether it would work. And as I said, that graphite powder, I was really happy with how those grey pieces came out. They're exactly what I wanted. So for the next view, I'm going to go back and give the Pearl powder another chance. So this one is Aztec Gold. I'm constantly a bit of worry and wondering about, how much of what's happening is user error, how much of it is using incorrect products, unsuitable products, things like that. So decide to give the Pearl powder another chance, and I'm very glad I did, because these pieces, totally different. So I'm using this little seahorse mould as well, and just a little spare oval mould I had there. And then I also decide to try a couple of things here, and I'm just going to use a pigment powder of unknown origin, name, content, etc. It was, as I said, I buy lots of my crafting, or I did in the beginning, a lot of my crafting materials from Facebook Marketplace or garage sales, things like that. And so I did buy a whole lot of pigments from somebody, and they weren't labelled, but there is a pink powder which is a mica powder that has a beautiful pearlescent sheen to it, and this is what I'm going to use just to colour the polyurethane resin for the last two moulds. You'll see I'm using my new little acrylic stirring sticks. They are making me very happy. They're cleaning up really well. So there are good things going on there. So I'm going to pour these into my petal flower coaster, and I've also got what I think is advertised on Temu as a 2 tea light candle holder. but I think it's more like almost a little business card holder or a little stationery top. You see. Make up your own mind when you see. Anyway, these all cure really well, and so I'll go ahead and demold them now. And first of all, I'm going to demold the pieces that I tinted with the Aztec Gold pearlescent powder, and I'm really happy with them. They're not gold, but they did come out a lovely cream colour, and they do have the gold flecks in them. So not unhappy at all. And so I did end up doing 3 of those, and you'll see how I work with those in a little while. A little bit nervous about the seahorse coming up, won't lie, because first time casting, it's very delicate, but the pieces that are a little bit of overpour just popped off really easily in my fingers. I'm not sure if that would be the same case if I did it much later, but it worked really well. Now this next piece is interesting. It's exactly the same powder as the top ones, and look at the difference on the front and back. You can really see that gold shining through. So here we've got the graphite powder, so that sort of a grey look that I was hoping for in the telephone holder. That sounds very old-fashioned, doesn't it? The mobile phone holder. Smartphone. And I'm really happy with that. There are a couple of marks on it that are from unmixed powder, but that's okay. Now these are the other no-name generic powder. And look, these came out quite pretty as well. It's again a few little unmixed powder spots in them, but I actually think that adds to the character. And yes, it works. I can stand something in it and it doesn't fall down. Then this is that little tub I was telling you about. I think these would be really lovely for business card holders, maybe little planters, or just a little pot on your desk to have things like paper clips or sticky notes or something like that. And that came out beautifully. So I still had some resin left in the bottle. I moved on to the next project, which is the last project. You'll be very happy to hear. So again, I chose to use the Aztec Gold pearlescent powder because I really liked the way that came out in that beautiful cream colour. And so I went ahead and I did, oh, look at the mess. This is awful watching back. I don't normally work in this manner, but I must admit that the stress of the short time and the fact that by now I had been working with these bottles of polyurethane resin for hours, and I think from memory it was probably 2 a.m. or something. Yeah, I'm being very grotty and not my normal self. But anyway, all the pieces cured. So this is the Aztec Gold again, and once again I've got those little blotches in it, but I love them. It's almost like a little faux terracotta look. And I must say that these feel amazing. They are so smooth. I really don't think I've seen a bubble in any of them since the alcohol ink incident, and they are really just perfect. Very happy with them, which proves to me that this is a really good quality polyurethane resin from Solid Solutions, and that the awfulness at the beginning of the video was due to user error, incorrect following instructions, you know, not disposing of it after 3 months, and, you know, wrong pigments, all sorts of things like that. So I'm really pleased that I pushed through and used up the whole bottle. I am going to go ahead and order more, and I've now proven to myself that, you know, some of these things can work, and very happy with that. So the pink ones, I just used that no name brand powder again, because I was already happy with how it turned out. And yeah, this seahorse, it didn't deserve that sploshing. So I did have to pick a little bit off him, but look, it still came out quite beautifully. It's a really lovely mould. Whoever designed this did a really good job. Look at me messing up the mat. Oh dear. And of course, coming up is the pot that started it all. That eggshell shaped mould, or the eggshell edge mould. Look at that cute little tub. It's so pretty. I did give it another chance, and I did it with one colour this time, no fancy layering, and I used that pink pigment powder, and I have to tell you, it is one of the prettiest things I have ever made. It is so shiny and so pearlescent. It's just gorgeous. The feel of it, it is so super smooth, just perfect. Couldn't be happier. If you are still alive, thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate your support, and I'm going to show you now some photos of the finished products. This is the terrible pot with all the bubbling, and I'll show you the bottom of it here. Not fit for any purpose I can think of, so that probably isn't going to survive. These were the alcohol ink pieces and the pigment powder that didn't work. Hate them. Love this one. Perfect. These two little tubs, I couldn't be happier with them. They are so pretty in real life, so smooth, gorgeous. I added some floral decals to these ones and set them on those little display stands. And I went ahead and added some butterfly decals to these ones, and I will turn these ones into fridge magnets. And lastly, my little seahorse, I popped him on that flower coaster mould, and I've added some blue decals at the back. If you've made it this far, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. It was a mammoth journey. I learnt a lot, and I've grown a lot in my crafting. And I have some pieces in the end that are some of the best that I've ever made and make me very happy. And I've got others that, you know, yeah, look, maybe I'll take them to school and maybe they can just become pencil pots and they'll make someone happy because they won't know the story. Thank you again. I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.